What's going on, everybody?
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Break it down with the proper perspective.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing out there? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective coming to you live. It is Thursday. I'm going to get it started for a minute. If you're just tuning in, hit the like button. If you're just tuning in, hit the subscribe button. Trying to get this, trying to make sure everything is going to be working. If you're going to tune in, then please say something in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from, where you're listening from, where you're holding it down from, what's going on. Gonna be talking about some white liberals tonight. Gonna be talking about a little piece of history. Gonna be talking about some stuff going on. But before I really get started, I want to make sure that what I'm trying to do is one of those multitasking things again. So I'm trying to go live on Instagram and TikTok. So we're going to get it started. What's going on Instagram? What's going on TikTok? What's going on YouTube? Please stay tuned as I get this thing rolling. Or at least on TikTok. I may not do Instagram if it gets too crazy, if it gets too weird. Because I'm not seeing my live button on here. Here we go. So, what's going on to everybody in TikTok land, on YouTube, on Instagram? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective. We're coming to you live tonight. We're going to be talking about some things. I want to say unity is a scam, but I might be wrong. Unity might not be a scam. Y'all can let me know. If you're listening, if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, say something in the comments. Let me know where you're listening from, what state, what country you holding it down at. I'm gonna get it started real soon, so I do appreciate you attending. I'm gonna pull up this particular individual. So what I want to talk about, it's like this is a letter to white liberals. Dear white liberals, how y'all guys doing out there tonight? You might be tuning in either tonight or you may catch the rebroadcast. I don't know. But I'm doing this because it was something very interesting that somebody sent to me. And clearly, I mean, the nation is in shambles. Everybody is in a panic. But I found this video very interesting. And I felt like, okay, I need to just go ahead and address it. But before I say my piece, I'm going to let you hear what she had to say. So let me get these little clicks on and make sure it's working the right way.
And your experience.
Yeah, so let me see.
And I'm not asking for grace. I don't think I have any right to ask for that. I'm asking for guidance.
Let's see.
What can we do
what she wants to
together
know
for the benefit of us all? That.
Let's see if I can get that started over. Okay, so here we go. That's the question, ladies and gentlemen. What would it take? What would it take for Black, white, and indigenous people to band together against fascism? I felt like that's an interesting question. It's a fascinating question. And it's quite appropriate. But, I have part of an issue with her asking the question in and of itself. Rather interesting that now they want to come try to knock on our doors. But then in the process of her conversation, in the process of her digging into this topic, she brings up an interesting historical piece about Bacon's rebellion. And then I was like, okay, now I got to say something. But I'm going to go ahead and let her speak so you can hear it. Now, if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, then you can't see what I'm showing on the screen. So if you really want to catch it, you might be able to hear it. But if you really want to catch it, come on over to youtube.com/@the-proper-perspective. And now we hit the play button.
And it's going to break a lot of people. So now what? I want to speak directly to my Black and Indigenous friends and followers. So I'm asking you, what would need to happen for you to trust white people enough to stand together in the fight against fascism?
So again, now I'm going to hit this pause. I'm trying to make sure I don't get gigged on. This video, this is a response video, and I am doing this for educational purposes. Her first question, her leading question is, what is it going to take for Black? What is it going to take for Indigenous? What is it going to take for brown communities to all come together? Now, me personally, I'm not offended by the question. I think I'm personally wired for unity and unification types of ideas, so I'm not offended by the question. Not off top. I might be a little suspect of the question, but I'm not necessarily offended. It's a good question. And depending on where you fall on the political spectrum will determine, how you feel about this question. I know that there are some people that's like all three communities need to do their own thing and never work together. I can understand that position. So again, she goes on, and I'm gonna let her, say her thing.
This shit isn't new to you. You are experienced in surviving a government that never protected you.
I gotta stop again. You are experienced. You are experienced in working with a government that has never protected you. Well, okay, this is true. No one can argue with that. Black people are, brown people are, the indigenous original nations of Turtle Island definitely know what it's like to be over here without protections. It's only one group that don't know what that's like. And now they're getting their FAFO calling card. But she goes on. Let me see now. I got anybody? Shout out to Doc Dreezy has joined on TikTok. Next Level Woods 2 has joined on TikTok. If anybody else is joining on Instagram, maybe I'll get a message. So far, nobody, but it is what it is. So again, this is tonight's session. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by At the Proper Perspective. And we're going to be talking about unity in the five-flavored community. But she goes on.
For hundreds of years, you've built mutual aid societies, care networks, whole systems of survival in a nation that wanted your labor and subservience, but not your well-being.
Now again, good point. We have had to work amongst ourselves to build communities, to build protection societies, and all this other stuff. So she's not right. I mean, she's not wrong. We have always had to fend for ourselves. And we've always created platforms inside and outside of our religious centers that would help us maintain and survive and even do better. Now, it's interesting to me that she knows all of this about us. So if she knows we've done this, then she knows it can be done. What does she need us for? But I digress.
White people are not ready for this. We were comfortable not knowing that bad things could happen to us, too. And we're not prepared. This is what they trained us for, to be passive when they turned the big screw.
So yes, I agree with her. White people may not necessarily be prepared for this. I only agree a little bit that white people may not be necessarily prepared for this. maybe perhaps a certain segment of the white community is not prepared for this. And maybe it's that segment that doesn't necessarily have a problem with black survival, with brown survival, with indigenous survival. But it's certainly not going to be the whole white community that is not prepared. There are survivalists that have been ready for this, whether they're on the racist spectrum or not. There are definitely a lot of racist white people who have been readying themselves for this day. They've been planning this all up and down the Heritage Foundation program. So I still got a little suspect type mentality going on with this woman.
But some of us are paying attention finally. I don't believe we're going to fix racism in this country. Not anytime soon, but
She don't believe we're going to fix racism in this country anytime soon. Now, knowing that racism in and of itself, and I don't mean bigotry, I don't mean discrimination, I don't mean preference, I mean white supremacist, systemic racism that's baked into the policies, the dictates, the laws, the programs, and everything. Now, she's openly saying, well, we don't better fix that. And guess what? She still wants some help.
we're in trouble together right now. Back in 16...
We're in trouble together right now. Now, I guess I'm going to go a little further once I finish letting her. And I'm for the most part, I would normally just let her roll right through. But I'm interrupting it because I've already been told, if you don't stop and pause the video and make your own commentary, then somebody can come back and say, you're using the footage in an inappropriate manner. So like I said, this is a response video. This is done for educational purposes. So now I will let her continue.
76, poor white and black folks rose up together in BACONS rebellion. The way they did this was to team up together, poor black people, poor white people, and fight against the elite class. My question is the hard one I started out with. What would need to happen for you to trust us enough to stand together in the fight against fascism? Not to be led by us. You'd be right to not want any part of a white-led resistance.
Well, thank you very much.
The truth is, we need your wisdom and your experience. And I'm not asking for grace. I don't think I have.
Do you really think she needs our wisdom and our experience? Or do you think she needs our bodies on the front line? That's one of my questions. Is she being genuine, or is she being disingenuous?
Any right to ask for that?
She don't have a right to ask for it. I'll agree with that 100%.
I'm asking for guidance. What can we do together for the benefit of us all?
What can we do together for the benefit of us all? What can we do together for the benefit of us all? This is the question. Shout out to anybody else who has joined in. It looks like Kim30 has joined. Victor Main 401 has joined. So appreciate you guys for joining. If you want, I'm not sure if you can hear the video that I'm playing. I'm primarily broadcasting on youtube.com/@theproperperspective. So you can watch the video and hear it if you come over there. But again, Instagram, TikTok, appreciate you coming on board. I am gonna continue playing this lady's video, and then we're gonna get into a conversation about the ask that she is asking. But I want to make sure. Okay, so no more interruptions, and here we go with the rest of her conversation.
That Native and Black people are far better equipped to face what is coming than white people are. You also have very good reasons not to trust us. So what would it take? I'm not an expert, just an avid learner. School me, and please join me in getting curious.
Okay, so there you have it. In a nutshell, she wants to know, what will it take for Black, brown, and indigenous communities to come together with white folks and all join together and fight the good fight against fascism? Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad question. If you are aware, if you're paying attention, yes, it does really look like, it does really feel like fascism is upon us. It does feel like we are definitely riding the wave of fascism. And so with that, I can't necessarily be upset that anybody is saying, hey, look, we need to come together. We need to figure out what's going on. Now, I will say that it's a rather interesting question. It's a rather interesting discussion. And I'm like, well, it's about time, isn't it? So now let me see. Let me make sure everything is still situated before I get into my full breakdown and take on this thing. I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. So if you are, like I said, let me give a shout out to now. It's a couple of people joining in on TikTok, and they don't really have names assigned to their profile. So I would just say, well, Hugo just joined. Peace to you. But TK08226 with a whole bunch of other numbers, I really can't do that. Hugo says, okay, I can't repeat that type of information on live. It kind of goes against a couple of things, but appreciate the sentiment if that's a realistic statement. But let me see now. Anyhow, so as I begin, I got one more thing to check. And let's see if this is working. If it is working, let's see if it's working. Yeah, I think it's working. All right. So if that's working, then that means, okay, so we good. We good. I ain't gonna belay that too much longer now. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying, you heard the speech, you heard the spiel. She says she wants everybody to get together and not just get along, but she wants us all to fight together against fascism. So here we go with my opening for the night. I'm like, now I may get a little sarcastic a little bit, but so I'm like, oh, so now you wanna know what it's gonna take. I'm like, I'm not mad. It's about time y'all wanted to come together. You want to come together, fight fascism. You want to know what it's going to take. I'm going to tell you what it's going to take. Now that your comfort is under threat, I cannot help but make this comment. I cannot help but point out it's quite interesting timing. Now that the system that you kept feeding, now I'm not necessarily talking about her, the specific individual. I don't know her. I will say, and I know I can stand pretty comfortably on this. There's been a lot of these types of videos being posted, whether they're being posted on Instagram, Facebook's, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. There seems to be this inundation of the melanin challenged trying to get us to come back to the fold and help them fight. And so again, shout out to CMB Big Dog 192 on Instagram. So it's quite interesting that now that the system, now that they realize, now that they can't help but to admit that the system is beginning to turn on them after they done fed into all of the garbage, now they need our help. Okay, but she want to know what it is we can do. I'm going to tell you right now. Number one, I'm going to tell you right now. Shout out to Kimi Dosunmu. And if I messed up your name, I do apologize. First off, why don't you pay black people what they're owed? Can we work a deal out with that? Why don't you pay black people? Matter of fact, why don't you pay everybody? Sometimes there may be a different term thrown out, but I know that Native Americans, I know that the indigenous population, I know they got an extra grind with y'all. I know they've been asking for redress. I may not be aware of the word that they've used, but I know they want. Oh, Lord, let me see. I hope I'm still alive because this thing is acting as though it's not. But hopefully, let me see who someone has joined. Cold Quiet has joined, and he asked a question: do you like Trump? Before I answer that question, let me get a little bit further into this thing, and you tell me what you think. So again, what do I say? If you want black people to come together with you to fight fascism, we gonna need some of these old debts to be covered. We gonna need reparations to be paid. That's my first thing. You know, you want unity? Let's start with reparations. Full stop. Period. Point blank. You don't get to call for solidarity. You don't get to call for solidarity when you've never shown up for repair. If you're always absent when it's time to talk about redress, don't come with a new bill. You know, we told y'all decades ago, centuries ago, if you really want to get heavy with it, slavery wasn't just a tragedy. It was a $1 trillion economic engine. But y'all ain't want to pay us. Jim Crow wasn't just a bruise. Jim Crow was something that furthered the exploitation for an extensive amount of years. Then you went to redlining. Then you went to mass incarceration. Then you continued the stolen land, the stolen labor. Then you went to stolen cultures. You've benefited every step of the way. So now is not necessarily the time to come knocking and looking for allies when you still slam the door on what's owed. Shout out to Drea, who joined on TikTok. Let me see. Do a little wave on Instagram. So again, you want a coalition? Cut the check. Let me say that, put that in the screen. Cut the check. If you want a coalition, it's time to pay up. Until then, as far as I'm concerned, now I don't speak for everybody, and I don't pretend to speak for everybody. I just speak for those. Like, if you hear what I'm saying and you feel me, say something in the chat. Say something in the chat. Or leave a comment. But as far as I'm concerned, my name is Wes, and I ain't in this mess. Our name is Wes, and we ain't in this mess. So what can we do to work together to fight fascism? Well, as you indicated, black people been doing stuff on our own for the whole time we've been here. We're going to continue doing what we need to do to survive the fascism. If y'all want our help, y'all gonna have to come to the table with more than words. We all done with word salads. Because the truth of the matter is, y'all are the ones that let fascism flourish. While we were screaming, let's stop this. We've been warning y'all about fascism since COINTELPRO at the earliest. Like I said, this goes back further than that. But if we just stop with the go around the 1920s up through the 60s with COINTELPRO. But even under Reagan, we've been trying to warn y'all this is not good for the country. When Bush got into office, we told y'all there's danger on this path because we lived it, because we know it. But y'all ignored us. Or worse, you mocked us. You let police militarization grow until now. What is it called now? Even now, you're letting ICE grow. You let white nationalists organize in plain sight, and y'all were still silent. But now let's come together, because now your pockets are hurting. I don't know about that. You know, if you would have stood with us, you might have been able to hold on to Roe v. Wade. But now that the reproductive rights are gone, now that the library books are being tampered with, now that your little backyard yoga studios are under attack, now it's a five-alarm fire. Well, isn't that something? Well, isn't that something? So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. And the reason I say I don't know is because I know almost anything that I say is going to be rejected. I'm going to say, what is it going to take? It's going to take reparations. I don't know if we can do that. I know you're going to say that. But you asked the question. And so now this might get a little bit closer to one of the guests tonight. One brother asked me, or one person asked me, oh, shout out to D that just joined on TikTok. What's going on? What's popping? He said, what's up, proper? Y'all, you know what's up. I got to do my little thing. What's popping? Drea just joined. Shout out to Drea. Shout out to Anita. So here's my thing. Because I understand that everything that's going on right now feels like a brand new, impossible, scary scenario. And I'm not saying it ain't to some extent scary. I'm not saying it ain't to some extent brand new. But I say that with reluctance. Because the truth is, the fact of the matter is, Trump is not new. He's not new in the sense of this is his second term. He's not new in the sense of he's been a problematic individual in the public eye ever since he has ever been in the public eye. But a lot of y'all want to act like Trump is some kind of freak accident. No, he's just America. And I would spell it with the 3 Ks, but he's just America with the sound turned all the way up. So let's be real. A lot of you were fine with Trump policies for decades. You were fine with Heritage Foundation policies for decades. Because again, it's not just about Trump. You tolerated mass surveillance. You stood by while Black and Indigenous communities were poisoned, arrested, disappeared, unalived. But now that he's talking about suspending the Constitution, but now, after he slid into the office and pardoned all the January 6th terrorists, because y'all didn't even want to call them terrorists. Now that he's reinstating the Confederate monuments, and a lot of y'all didn't even want him to go away in the first place. Now you feel like, ooh, can we do kumbaya? Can we unite? What's in it for us if we unite? We always had the gun to our head in this country. We've always had our back to the wall in this country. And at this point, I'm saying we as black people, brown people, indigenous people, we have always been fending for ourselves. What do we get by joining with you all? So this we you speak of, when was it ever mutual? You say we need to come together. Which we? Who? Because when we were marching for George Floyd, y'all were calling the cops. And I will say this, not to sidetrack, but shout out to all my black, quote unquote, so-called immigrant groups. And if you've been on my channel before, you know why I'm saying this. But shout out to all my black so-called immigrant groups, my Caribbean brothers and sisters, my continental African brothers and sisters. Shout out to all of them, because at the time when that George Floyd thing jumped off, Caribbean blacks, continental Africans, they all came out into the streets with us. They stood with us. They marched with us. Hell, I remember seeing videos of continental Africans holding whole-scale African spirituality rituals on our behalf. Yeah, full-scale voodoo rituals to help us get just a little bit of the justice that we were demanding at that time. And that's another reason why I don't really that's why I don't really respect the separationists in the black community. But I got videos on them already. So let me get back to what I'm saying. When we said defund the police, y'all say, ha, ha, ha. Y'all doubled down and started donating to the police to make sure they got extra money. But now's the time. You told us to tone it down. When we talked about Palestine, when we talk about free Congo, when we talk about help the South Sudan, or both Sudans, y'all tell us we getting too big for our britches. We get canceled. So forgive me, please. Forgive me if we just don't believe you. Forgive me if we just don't believe you. You don't sound genuine. You don't sound genuine at all. Shout out to Edward Ramsey, 78. Shout out to Coach, I can't read it. Coach Kamaya. Shout out to Friend Nesto, Ricky Kirby, 42. Like I said, thank you for joining. Please hit the like button. Please hit the sub button. If you're on TikTok, come on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective. That's where you can hit the like button, hit the sub button. If you're on Instagram, do the same thing, please. But I'm going to continue. I tend to get a little off track every now and then, but I'm going to continue. Because I got to make this point. Forgive me, forgive us, if we don't really want to risk our lives for what you define, for what you call and label as unity. Because what you call unity oftentimes is just reinvented exploitation. You want to put us on the front line. We get all the hits. We get all the bullets. You get what you want. And we get left holding the bag. So, but again, yeah, you're scared because the boot is on your neck now. Well, you know, flex up, toughen up, you know, hopefully your neck don't break. Our neck ain't broke. If we've been suffering this kind of treatment, if we've been suffering under what is de facto fascism for 400 years and it ain't broke us, y'all will be all right. You'll be okay. Because really, at the end of the day, you're not asking for unity because you love democracy. You're asking for unity because you're scared. You're asking for unity because you're finally realizing that the big, beautiful bill that you helped vote in, we didn't help vote it in. 92% of black women said, oh, hell no. I think it's about 85 or 87% of black men said, oh, hell no. Y'all the ones that voted this stuff in. You voted for fake border walls. He told you from the jump, he platformed on fascist schemes. But you're surprised? Now that it's coming for you, you want to retool. Cut the check. Let black people get our reparations. Let brown people get whatever the reparations, the repair programs that they need and are asking for. Let indigenous people get whatever the reparations, the repair programs that they've been asking for. Make good on what's owed, and we can come together. Make good on what's owed, and we can come together. Because without that, you just want the very people you've been ignoring 400 years for some of us. Less than that for some, more than that for others. You just want the very people that you've been ignoring, the very people that you've helped police or improperly police or brutally police, the very people that you've tokenized, the very people you've underpaid to save you from a monster that you made. See, shout out to, again, if you're listening still, Instagram, TikTok, say something. 2 new messages I got down here on. So shout out to Favis Hairline. Shout out to G Suave. D has liked the live. I appreciate that. Anybody else, hit the like button on TikTok. Hit the like button on Instagram. Hit the like button on YouTube as well. I need to check to make sure. Sometimes I got YouTube folk listening. Sometimes I don't. So let me jump over there and pull up the YouTube page just to make sure. Just to make sure. Because I got a little bit more for you, but I want to make sure I ain't missing anybody's comments. So let me make sure. Okay, we got one. No, that's not right. That's not right. So just bear with me for one hot second, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now we got it pulled up. And we doing okay. So yeah, okay, like I said. So now this next part, I'm gonna get into something. And if you're a history buff, you're gonna check. You're gonna like this. Ain't no time for, ain't no mind for fake unity. So here's the deal. If you really want black people, brown people, indigenous people to work to get to all come together with white people and fight against fascism, first and foremost, at least for black people, and I'm pretty sure, but I'm not going to speak for them, but for black people, until you're ready to center black liberation, until you're ready to pay reparations, until you're ready to dismantle white supremacy, and I already know you ain't because you admit in your own speech, you admit in your own request, hey, look, we ain't gonna never be able to get rid of this stuff, but we still need your help. Until you are willing to fight hardcore to dismantle white supremacy and follow black leadership without censoring yourself. Our name is Wes, and we ain't in this mess. And we won't be cleaning up what you done let rot for generations. So you want to know what it'll take for black folks, for brown folks, for indigenous folks to come together and fight racism? The real question is, what you willing to give? How much you paying? How much are you paying? Because like I said, if it ain't about, for black people, if it ain't about reparations, then it ain't about nothing. And this other thing, I wish I could, if I could get I can't get the rewind button on here like I thought I could. But she brought up this little historical thing. And here's when I really started saying, hold up, this ain't genuine. This is disingenuous. So she brought up Bacon's Rebellion. And excuse me if I go a little hardcore, but you bring up Bacon's Rebellion and the way that you talk about it, now you're beginning to sound like a forked tongue Mayo Mafia Mitch. I got something for you on this Bacon's Rebellion thing. But first, again, I'm going to say this all night. I'm going to double down. I'm going to triple down on my original statement. If you want unity, cut the check. Even Martin Luther King Jr. said cut the check. Y'all built generational wealth off of our stolen labor, off of our stolen lives, off of our stolen futures. And now you want to skip the bill and hold hands like this is a Disney musical? Ain't no coalition without compensation. Ain't no coalition without compensation. Ain't no coalition without compensation. And I ain't trying to do that little 3 thing that Dr. Umar do. I just felt like saying that this one time. I don't normally do that. So don't hit me with that. Don't come at me like that. No peace without payment. No peace without payment. Y'all love to quote MLK, but you forget that he demanded them reparations. Now, if this kind of conversation makes you uncomfortable, then we already know how real, how serious you being with your request for us to come be your partner in the fight against fascism. Now, let me jump down. Yeah, I got my little notes that I'm reading from. So let me jump down. Because she brought up Bacon's Rebellion.
Well, that big bereavement bill has passed, and it's going to break a lot of people. So now what? I want to speak directly to my Black and Indigenous friends and followers. So I'm asking you, what would need to happen for you to trust white people enough?
I mean, if you're just joining in, then maybe you didn't hear her little speech, so I'll play a little bit of it again. But I'm trying to skip to, and Instagram don't let you skip through like that. But I'm trying to skip to the part where she brings up Bacon's Rebellion.
To stand together in the fight against fascism. This shit isn't new to you. You are experienced in surviving a government that never protected you. For hundreds of years, you've built mutual aid societies, care networks, whole systems of survival in a nation that wanted your labor and subservience, but not your well-being.
So like I said, I'm not going to be able to fast forward it, so I'm just going to go on. Anyhow, because I'll have a link to her video on my page after this, if you want to go back and check out what she's saying. But she brings up a piece of history, and she says, black, brown, and whites, we all came together, or not all, but she brings up Bacon's Rebellion. She says, this was a time when white people did honestly come together. The white people who were being adversely affected by the power elite actually came together with the black people who were being adversely affected by the power elite, and we struggled together. Now, this is true. So, but if you know your history, it's really rather interesting that she stopped with that. She don't want to go no further. She just want to give you the brief synopsis on page 1. So I'm like, yes, yes, Mayo Mafia. We did come together during Bacon's Rebellion. That was a moment of black and white unity. In 1706, nope, let me slow it down. In 1676, Nathaniel Bacon led a rebellion where, and maybe this is another reason why it hit me so much, in colonial Virginia. Yeah, I do get a little triggered when people start misrepresenting Virginia history. This rebellion included poor white indentured servants and our ancestors, the enslaved Africans, and free blacks. Everybody was angry about land access, political corruption, and the colonial elite's failure to protect frontier settlers from indigenous attacks. Indigenous attacks. So why was the indigenous attacking? I told y'all. They got a grievance. They got a long-standing axe to grind with white folk too. And if you want them to come to the front and help fight, you got to redress them as well. But yes, for a moment, there was a multicultural rainbow coalition. But here's the thing. When you look through the files of history, which are going to get even harder and harder to find with the fascist dictator doing what he's doing, but you would discover that this was not about racial solidarity. It was about shared frustration over class oppression and lack of opportunity. Now, this is key. Why is this key? Yes, black and white were on the front line together. But once the rebellion was crushed, the white elite in Virginia started clutching their pearls. The white elite in Virginia panicked. They realized that the real threat wasn't just the rebellion in and of itself. It was the fact that poor white folks said, since we can't get nothing from the top, we might as well get with these ones and we can knock it all down. So the fact that poor white folks were aligning with black folks, the enslaved ones and the freed ones, they got scared. They was, oh, no. This was, divide and they shall be conquered. Divide them and they shall be conquered. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't act on their panic. They said, uh-oh, we got a problem. How do we solve it? They put their minds together and said, divide and conquer. So what did they do? They took to the books. They took to them laws. Laws that weren't in effect before started getting put on the books. They codified race-based slavery. Before then, even though slavery was slavery, they hadn't necessarily intricately written it down so that it could be on the books. They were just, he who has the biggest guns makes the rules. But they began passing laws to make slavery permanent and to make slavery entirely race-based. If you were black, absolute 100% you are a slave. If you're white, absolutely 100% you are free. Enslaved Africans lost any legal protections that they had before. Wasn't a bunch that they had before. Just like we ain't got but so many today. Free black people lost many of the rights that they had. But indentured white people didn't lose any rights. Poor white people didn't lose any rights. Matter of fact, what they did was they started, let's tweak with the system. They started giving perks to whiteness. They started giving land. Hey, you're white. Hey, guess what? We got 40 acres for you. Sound familiar? They started giving them better legal status. They started lowering their taxes. You shouldn't have to pay that much in taxes. You ain't got money that you ain't built yourself up off the ground yet. We'll give you a break. We'll get it from the blacks. White became the social plus. White became more than just skin color. I mean, it was still skin color. It was still 100% skin color, but it became the social status. It became a social class with privileges denied to black people. So even a free black person, hey, bro, you may be free, but you got to step down. You ain't up here. You could be free and rich. You still hit the bottom of the ladder because we got to put these poor white folks up ahead of you. This was the result of the Bacon's Rebellion. So for her to bring up the Bacon's Rebellion and say, hey, we worked together during the Bacon's Rebellion, can't we do it again? Why? So we can get the short end of the stick again? The Bacon's Rebellion was what scholars call the beginning of the invention of the white race as a social caste system. So the white people who had just fought alongside the black people, you know, solidarity, brother. Nah, they said, get on back there. They said, if I go ahead and roll with them, I get something. So they chose the path of social mobility through what? Through whiteness. They said, the hell with solidarity. They distanced themselves from blackness. They distanced themselves from black people. Now, just yesterday, they was on the front line. Yeah, brother, you and me. Soon as them laws got rewritten, fuck you, brother. They distanced themselves from blackness to get ahead in a system that was now offering racial privilege as a trade-off for class subjugation. So when folks today try to invoke Bacon's Rebellion like it was some kind of proto-MLK movement or moment, like it was some kind of pre-MLK movement, they're either misinformed and okay, if the lady, see who I'm pointing at, if this lady, if she's misinformed, then again, I'm not necessarily trying to attack her, but she's the one that made a comment. But if she's not misinformed, then perhaps she's willfully ignoring the facts, the truth, the aftermath. And I ain't got time for that. We ain't got time for that. So let me sum it up for you. Bacon's Rebellion wasn't about black and white unity. It was poor folks mad that they were locked out of the kingdom. And once the rebellion ended, all the spoils was split based on skin tone. All the white folk was invited into the kingdom, and all the black folk was remaining on the outside. This was the invention of a social caste system known as white supremacy, racism, whiteness. And all the white folk bought it hook, line, and sinker. So all that solidarity went straight out the window. And quite frankly, if you look at what happened after George Floyd, you know, there were a lot of good-hearted white people that fought with us to try to get some things right, to correct some things after the George Floyd assassination. And almost all of them was when Trump came in and said, I'm getting rid of DEI. So the parallel is there. This is what they do. They ask us for help when they're scared. And soon as they get even a slither of what they want, pew, they out. Shout out to other folk that have joined Let me see. Now I'm gonna mess up some names, but peace to God's Earth Angel joined. Mbalini Namdi has joined. I can't see some of these other names, but if you want to say something in the chat, say something that way I can respond to a question or a comment. Somebody else asked me earlier, do you like Trump? I'll be like, if you're still here, what do you think? After hearing my little conversation and my spiel. Final word. What happened after Bacon's Rebellion laid the foundation for systemic racism in the United States? And it was a deliberate political strategy. That's the thing. It was a deliberate political strategy. Now, if we know our history, why would we want to unite again, at least under the guise of the model that she referred to, the Bacon's Rebellion? We didn't get anything from that. We got floored after the Bacon's Rebellion. So to bring it up, it's like, okay, so you playing in our face. So like I said, her leading question was, what needs to happen for Black, brown, and indigenous people to come together with white people and fight the good fight against fascism? Well, here's the question. I throw the ball back into your corner. What are you going to do to secure reparations for Black Americans? What are you going to do to reinstate the student loan cancellation that would have freed a whole generation of not just Black people from debt, but especially the Black grads who carry the heaviest load? Because unless you're pushing policy with your chest, not just posting TikToks and Instagram lives and YouTube videos and Snapchats and whatever else, we don't care about your tears. We don't care about your fears. As you indicated, we've been going through this for 400 plus years. We don't get anything when we work with you guys, except the shaft. So again, unless you're calling your reps, I'd like to hear you calling your representatives, telling them to quickly vote thumbs up, vote yes on HR 40. March your feet on down to your congressman's office and tell them vote yes on HR 40, and tell them stop trying to gerrymander and redistrict Jasmine Crockett out of a seat. I'd like to see you actually sacrifice your comfort if you think we're supposed to sacrifice our bodies and our lives. Because we're not the missing piece. No, that's incorrect. We might actually be the missing piece, and we're going to keep being the missing piece. We're going to be missing. Because for real, y'all late to a fight that we never stopped. We never stopped fighting. We've been fighting this whole time. But we are gathering ourselves, collecting ourselves, and planning on our own. Because that's what we've always had to do. Now that's my piece. That's my 2 cents. That's my what else would you call it? That's my proper perspective, ladies and gentlemen. And so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. I don't stay on too long. I welcome people joining into the conversation, but I'm only prepared for you to do that on YouTube. So like if somebody wanted to jump over to YouTube, you could come over there and, we could continue the conversation. Shout out to Tansy Busby, who joined on TikTok. Who joined on Instagram. Shout out to, and now I'm going to get the little weird. Yeah, I'm still here. I won't be here much longer. TikTok like to make sure you still active. So shout out to Lisa Del Montaro. And again, if I messed up your name, I do apologize. I can't read these small screens. But otherwise, I appreciate those of you who came in, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Come over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective and drop a comment. And I will see you on the next one.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. Whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. And whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective.